The clinking of cheap plastic forks against paper plates echoed through the community clubhouse of Willow Creek Estates. One of those picture-perfect Texas suburbs where every lawn is shaved to military precision and every mailbox matches the HOA-approved beige. I sat at the head of the long folding table for 12, watching Karen Whitmore pour herself another glass of the $8 Chardonnay she'd labeled Community Appreciation Wine. At 58, her silver blonde helmet of hair still gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Her pastel cardigan perfectly matched to the neighborhood palette, and her smile never wavered even though the rest of us knew she hadn't paid a single assessment out of her own pocket in 5 years. "How's that new promotion treating you, Avery?" she asked, not because she cared, but because she was already calculating how much more she could squeeze out of my paycheck. "It's fine," I replied. The words clipped. I've been a senior financial analyst long enough to recognize the code. When's my next special assessment? Her husband, Arthur, sat beside her, swirling his wine with the practiced air of a man who believed the HOA presidency entitled him to the finest things without ever working for them. Their daughter, Chloe, beamed across the table, engagement ring flashing like a warning beacon. "The new community pavilion is going to be divine," Chloe gushed, voice rising an octave. "Tuscany-inspired, vineyard views from the pergola, private chef for the grand opening. It's absolutely perfect." The rest of the board, Julian, the quiet treasurer, and his wife Maya, exchanged glances. My Aunt Beatrice, the neighborhood busybody, sipped her drink and watched the performance like she'd seen this script 100 times. Karen leaned forward, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. "They just need the $15,000 deposit to hold the contractor's date next month. I'll send you the wire info tonight. Avery, dear." The room went dead silent. All eyes locked on me. I took a careful sip of water, feeling the weight of 5 years of for the community demands pressing on my chest. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I can't swing $15,000 right now. I'm trying to build my own emergency fund." The silence that followed was absolute. Arthur suddenly found his napkin fascinating. Chloe's smile froze. Even the server refilling water glasses pivoted and retreated like he'd walked into a minefield. Karen broke the quiet with a short, barking laugh loud enough for the whole clubhouse to hear. "Emergency fund?" she repeated, as if I'd suggested robbing a bank. "Your job is to contribute. Avery, how does it feel to be the only useless checkbook in Willow Creek?" The table, minus Julian and Maya, erupted in chuckles, like she'd delivered a witty roast instead of a public shaming. I froze, the laughter hitting me like tiny fines I'd paid for 5 straight years. Suddenly I was back at my closing day, signing the HOA documents while Karen personally welcomed me with a basket of approved cookies and a list of 47 rules. "We're all family here," she'd cooed. "Just pay the little assessments, and everything stays perfect." The memory dissolved. Now I was 29 again, staring at the spreadsheet on my phone that showed $350,000 in voluntary contributions, late fees, and fines funneled straight into Karen's pet projects over the last 5 years. The laughter continued, but something inside me, worn thin by endless violation notices and sharpened by 3 months of quiet therapy, finally snapped. I smiled. It wasn't my usual polite smile. It was colder, harder. "You're right, Karen," I said, placing my fork down. "A useless checkbook should be out of service." The chuckles died instantly. Karen's face tightened behind her perfect makeup. "Avery, don't be dramatic. You're embarrassing the entire neighborhood. I've never been more serious." I pulled out my phone, fingers moving with calm precision while the board watched in horror. "Let's see first. I'm canceling the $4,000 special assessment you auto-drafted from my account last week." Done. Next tab. Blocking the HOA portal and every board member's number from my Venmo and email. Done. Karen's face drained of color. Arthur's turned a dangerous shade of red. I slid my corporate card across the table. This covers my share of the cheap wine. The rest of you are on your own. Arthur stood so fast his chair scraped like a violation notice. You ungrateful little. After everything the HOA has done for you. I stood too, suddenly taller than I'd felt in years. What exactly has the HOA done? I paid for my own house. I paid for your Tuscany fantasy. I looked at each stunned face. I'm done. I walked out feeling every neighbor's eyes on my back. The night air outside hit me like actual freedom. For the first time in 5 years, I could breathe without checking my grass height. The Uber ride home was a blur while my phone vibrated itself into oblivion. Karen, you'll ruin the whole community. Is that what you want? Arthur, fix this tantrum immediately. Chloe, the contractor won't hold the date without the deposit. My hand shook, but I didn't reply. Not yet. Then one message from an unexpected source. Julian, are you okay? That was incredible. My quiet treasurer neighbor, who'd never once voted against Karen, had just sent the first real support I'd ever received in this neighborhood. Something small and warm unfurled in my chest. The next morning I called in sick to work. Instead of the usual blazer, I threw on jeans and drove downtown to my financial advisor's office. Mark Wilson had watched the steady outflow of HOA money for years without comment. When I told him I needed a complete audit of every dollar that left my accounts in the last 5 years, his expression shifted from polite to concerned. 2 hours later, the spreadsheet glowed on his screen like a malignant tumor. $350,000. Not including the gifts of wine baskets and approved holiday lights I'd bought to stay in Karen's good graces. Not counting the loans I'd quietly covered when the board claimed emergencies. $350,000. I whispered the number. Throat raw. Mark wasn't finished. He clicked to another tab. This is worse. My full credit report showed 3 credit lines and a personal loan I'd never opened. All mailed to Karen's 5-bedroom estate 2 years ago. Balances near limit. Total fraudulent debt in my name, $60,000. The room tilted. They committed identity theft. Mark said gently, this isn't just neighborhood bullying. Avery, this is felony fraud. The realization crashed over me. It wasn't petty fines anymore. Karen had used my SSN from the HOA forms to open accounts, pocket the cash, and let the debt sit on my credit while she preached about community values. In that moment, I saw her face in my mind. The same woman who once cried at a board meeting about how my unapproved bird feeder was destroying property values, yet had no problem destroying my future. The panic from the clubhouse was gone, replaced by cold clarity. This was no longer a neighborhood dispute. It was a legal war. I called my therapist for a referral to the toughest financial litigation attorney in the city. Cynthia Blackwell, scorched earth reputation. Then I spent the rest of the day calling credit bureaus, freezing accounts, filing fraud reports. Each click made me stronger. My phone kept buzzing, but the messages shifted from rage to panic. Karen, the bank just called about the assessment. Arthur, your childish stunt stops today. I didn't answer. For the first time, I wasn't the neighborhood ATM. I was the one holding the receipts. Monday came and went. No $15,000 deposit. Voicemails piled up. Karen's voice. Practiced fragility. Avery. Please. The contractor is threatening to cancel. The whole neighborhood will suffer. Delete. Next message. Tone sharper. After all the sacrifices I made keeping this community perfect for you, delete. By afternoon, the mask slipped. You're tearing Willow Creek apart. Is that what you want? I set the phone down, surprised by my own calm. These were the desperate flails of people who'd lost their favorite cash cow. My therapist later called it progress. I called it the first day of the rest of my life. The buzzer to my front door sounded at 7:14 p.m. I checked the security camera, expecting takeout. Instead, I saw Arthur Whitmore's face twisted with rage as he jabbed the button again and again. I watched transfixed while he screamed at my doorbell camera. Suit jacket rumpled. Silver hair wild. I need to see Avery now. This is a neighborhood emergency. My doorman Hector stayed stone-faced. Sir, if Miss Thompson wanted visitors, she would have authorized it. Do you know who I am? Arthur flushed darker. I run this HOA. My money keeps this place perfect. Hector reached for the phone. I'm calling the police. The threat deflated Arthur instantly. He muttered something about telling her I was here and slunk away. 20 minutes later, a folded note slid under my door in his aggressive handwriting. You owe the community. Fix this. Underlined 3 times. I filed it in the folder I'd quietly labeled evidence. Chloe texted next. Mom is having heart palpitations from stress. The doctor says it's serious. Can you just pay the deposit? I'm scared for her. The familiar guilt not try to form in my stomach. 3 months ago, that message would have sent me running to my laptop. Instead, I remembered the $60,000 in fraudulent debt, now sitting on my credit report. I typed back one word, no, then blocked her number. Wednesday morning, I sat in DR. Lillian Fisher's office recounting the last 48 hours. No tears this time, just cold anger. They stole from me. I said, they manipulated the entire neighborhood. DR. Fisher nodded. What's different now? I see the pattern. The fake emergencies, the public shaming, the rules that only apply to everyone except her. She smiled. You weren't a victim. Avery. You were surviving a 5-year siege. Now you're the strategist. Thursday, I met my new lawyer, Martin Cohen, in his stark office, stacked with files. Let me understand, he said, reviewing my audit. Karen Whitmore has drained your accounts to the tune of $350,000 in bogus fines and assessments. And now we have $60,000 in fraudulent credit lines opened using your SSN from HOA paperwork. Yes. He polished his glasses slowly. Miss Thompson, in 27 years, I've seen plenty of financial abuse. This is textbook leverage. For the next week, I became a document archaeologist. I pulled every violation notice, every bank transfer marked HOA special assessment, every voicemail saved. I got sworn affidavits from Mark. I printed the forged credit applications with Karen's IP address logged on the HOA portal. I screenshot security footage of Arthur at my door. Each page stripped away another layer of the guilt they'd wrapped around me like approved holiday lights. By the following Wednesday, my file was 3 inches thick, 5 years of systematic HOA abuse culminating in felony identity theft. I was ready. I sat in Martin's conference room and dialed the Whitmores on speaker. Call recorded. Karen answered on the first ring. Avery, thank goodness. Mom, Dad, I've reviewed everything. I'm willing to have one meeting. Relief flooded her voice. Oh, we knew you'd come around. Dear, Arthur found the perfect Italian place. It won't be at a restaurant. I said coolly. It will be at my lawyer's office tomorrow. 10 a.m. Be there. I hung up before she could respond. Martin nodded once. Power just shifted. They know they've lost control. The next morning, Martin and I waited in the sterile conference room. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opened. Karen and Arthur walked in looking annoyed and entitled. Karen in her pearl necklace armor. Arthur's suit freshly pressed with indignation. They sat expecting to browbeat me back into line. They had no idea what was coming. All right, Avery, Karen began in her familiar community mother tone. This little tantrum has gone on long enough. We're willing to accept your apology if you just write the check. Martin interrupted smoothly. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, this is not a negotiation. We're here to present your options. He slid the first folder across the table. This is a copy of the police report already filed with the Texas authorities for identity theft. $60 $000 in fraudulent credit lines opened using Avery's information from your HOA files. Karen's hand froze halfway to the folder. Martin continued as if discussing the weather. We have the statements, the applications, the IP logs tracing back to the HOA portal you control. I'll watch their faces transform. Karen's skin turned chalk white, fingers clutching her designer purse. Arthur's complexion went purple from collar to hairline. How dare you? Arthur slammed his fist, glasses jumping. This is a neighborhood matter. You'd send your own HOA president to jail over a misunderstanding? Karen's eyes filled with tears, not the delicate country club kind, but messy, desperate ones smearing her mascara. Avery, how could you? After all the sacrifices we made keeping Willow Creek perfect for you. You have so much. It was your obligation to contribute. There was the guilt bomb they dropped on every resident who ever questioned a fine. I sat perfectly still, hands folded, searching for the old ache in my chest and finding only cool emptiness. Martin never raised his voice. As I said, the report is filed. The DA is interested. However, Avery has spoken with the district attorney. She will advocate for probation instead of jail time. Karen's hope flickered. On one condition, Martin slid the second document forward. You signed for full, immediate restitution of the $60,000. Arthur barked a bitter laugh. We don't have $60,000. Which is why, Martin replied calmly, sliding the third set of papers. You'll be listing your 5-bedroom estate for sale today. The escrow company we selected will ensure the $60,000 goes straight to the creditors, clearing Avery's name. The silence was absolute. The truth settled over them like ash from a burned community pavilion. Sign or face felony charges. Their neighborhood empire had become a legal trap. Arthur's hands, the same hands that once signed my violation notices with glee, began to tremble. Karen's shoulders slumped. The fight draining out like air from a punctured inflatable Santa she'd once fined me for displaying 2 days early. You can't be serious. Arthur muttered, bluster gone. Your neighbor is deadly serious. Martin replied, sign the papers or the DA moves forward. Karen looked at me then, really looked, perhaps for the first time in 5 years. Not as the neighborhood cash machine, not as the quiet one who always paid, but as a person whose boundaries she had violated with surgical precision. How will we live? She whispered. The words should have stung. They should have triggered the caretaker programming I'd carried since the day I moved in. Instead, I thought of the $350,000 already extracted, the lies, the public shamings, the 5 years of 60-hour weeks, so Karen could host her Tuscany fantasy while my own savings stayed flat. That, I said softly but steadily, is not my problem anymore. Arthur's jaw worked, pride warring with survival. Finally, he reached for the pen. This isn't over, he muttered as he signed. But we both knew it was. As the ink dried, I felt a knot I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of me loosened completely. The meeting ended with cold efficiency, no tearful goodbyes, just paperwork and boundaries. Outside on the sidewalk in the bright Texas morning, I took a breath that felt brand new. Lighter, cleaner. My phone buzzed. Julian, how did it go? I typed back, it's done. I'm free. The 5-bedroom colonial hit the market the following Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, the listing had 37 saves and 12 showings. By Thursday, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Downsizing? Asked the country club wife. Retirement in Florida? Suggested Karen's bridge partner. Karen didn't answer any of them. For the first time in 58 years, Eleanor Whitmore had nothing to say. The shames silenced her more effectively than any fine ever could. I watched from a distance, not with joy, but with steady clarity. The weight I'd carried for 5 years lifted. My shoulders straightened daily. My breathing deepened. Julian called Friday night. It's like watching a meteor hit. He said quietly. Mom hasn't left her bedroom in 3 days. Dad just sits drinking scotch. They tried me for money. I said no. I smiled. Progress. 2 weeks later, the escrow email arrived. Sale complete. The $60,000 fraudulent debt paid in full. My credit score jumped 47 points overnight. Martin called to confirm the Whitmores were now renting a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex with no doorman, no elevator, and zero prestige. The remaining proceeds after mortgage and my restitution barely covered their security deposit. They didn't even look at me when they signed. I told my therapist later, "How'd that make you feel?" "Nothing," I replied. I felt nothing at all, and it was the most peaceful nothing I'd ever known. 3 months passed. Chloe moved to Austin for a fresh start, working at a coffee shop and texting occasional apologies I read but didn't rush to answer. Julian and Maya had me over for dinner twice a month. No assessments required. I cooked more. I slept better. I dated a little. I breathed. Then one Tuesday evening, while reviewing quarterly projections, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Avery, it's your HOA president." Arthur's voice sounded smaller. "Older. We're having trouble with the deposit on the new apartment." I just thought 5 years ago those words would have sent me scrambling for my laptop. "That is not my problem," I said steadily. A long pause. I could hear him breathing. "Avery, please." I ended the call without another word. No guilt. No obligation. Just quiet. Certain freedom. I blocked the number and turned back to my spreadsheet titled Condo Down Payments. I was looking at 2 bedrooms with views of the Greenbelt. The quiet neighbor had become the only one who escaped. 18 months later, morning sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden rectangles across hardwood floors. I stood in my new 2-bedroom condo overlooking the Greenbelt, coffee mug warm in my hands. The view still stopped me sometimes, a living tapestry of trees amid the suburban concrete. My phone pinged with a calendar reminder. Housewarming party 7 p.m. I smiled. The $60,000 restitution had made the perfect down payment. Justice with a view. Last week, I ran into Spencer at a financial conference. He mentioned seeing Arthur's stocking shelves at the local Kroger. Eyes down, shoulders hunched. His fraud record made him permanently unemployable in any respectable office. Karen worked part-time as a cashier at the same store. Her social circle had vanished like morning dew on an unapproved lawn. The mighty HOA president brought low by her own greed. I didn't feel the savage satisfaction I once imagined. Just peace. The doorbell rang at 6:58 p.m. Julian and Maya arrived first, arms loaded with grocery bags. "We're making the drinks," Julian announced, kissing my cheek. My brother moved through my kitchen with easy familiarity, no longer the quiet treasurer afraid to vote against the board. Maya arranged appetizers. "Your place looks amazing, Avery." The condo filled quickly. My therapist brought homemade bread. My financial advisor arrived with his husband, both admiring the view. Former colleagues, new friends. Warmth and laughter replaced the tense performative gatherings of the past. This wasn't an obligation disguised as community. This was mine. The doorbell rang again at 8:15. I opened it to find Chloe standing there, hands clutching a brown paper bag. She looked smaller somehow, designer clothes replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. Perfect blowout gone, hair in a ponytail. "Avery," she said, voice barely above the party noise. "I'm in therapy. I'm working at a coffee shop. I'm so sorry for everything." She held out the bag. Inside was a bottle of wine, $1.15 according to the price tag she forgot to remove. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. $15 instead of $15,000. The old Avery would have rushed to comfort her, to erase her discomfort at the expense of my own. I studied my former neighbor's face. seeing not Karen's pawn, but Chloe herself. Humbled. Human. Thank you for coming, I said simply, stepping aside to let her in. It wasn't instant forgiveness. It was a door barely open on my terms. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced. An email from Karen. I deleted it without reading. She hadn't been invited. Later, when the noise grew too loud, I stepped onto the balcony. The greenbelt stretched below, streetlights tracing paths like strings of approved holiday lights. Behind me, glasses clinked and laughter rose. Julian told a story that made everyone howl. Chloe sat quietly talking with Maya. I took a sip of wine and felt the cool air on my face. For 29 years, I had lived as someone's cash machine, someone's compliance project, someone's HOA ATM. Standing here, watching the lights shimmer against the darkening sky. I was none of those things. I was just Avery, and I was finally home. But freedom isn't loud fireworks or viral revenge videos. It's the quiet mornings when I walk my dog without checking for violation stickers. It's the afternoon I planted an unapproved rose bush just because I like the color. It's the neighbor who stopped me at the mailbox last week and whispered, "Thank you. We all knew something was wrong, but you were the only one brave enough to prove it." The new HOA board, elected in a landslide after Karen's resignation, rewrote half the ridiculous rules in the first month. No more 2.5-inch lawn police. No more color-approved tyranny. Just common sense and actual community. I still get the occasional anonymous letter slipped under my door. "You ruined everything," but the handwriting is shaky now. The ink smudged like someone writing from a cramped apartment kitchen. I file them with the rest of the evidence folder that sits in my desk drawer like a trophy no one else will ever see. Sometimes at night I open it, flip through the pages, and remember the woman who once paid $350,000 just to keep the peace. That woman is gone. In her place is someone who knows the difference between real community and a con wearing pearls. Last month, the local news ran a short segment. Texas HOA president indicted in fraud scheme. They blurred Karen's face, but I recognized the pastel cardigan in the background footage. Arthur wasn't mentioned, probably still stocking shelves, but the anchor ended with a line that made me laugh out loud. Residents say the neighborhood has never looked better since the old regime fell. I paused the video, rewound, and played it again just to hear the satisfaction in the reporter's voice. Then I closed my laptop, poured a glass of the good wine I no longer had to hide, and toasted the empty air. To useless checkbooks everywhere finally going out of service. The party lights are still twinkling behind me as I stand on the balcony. Julian's laughter carries on the breeze. Chloe's quiet conversation with Maya drifts out. My new friends clink glasses to the woman who took down the HOA Karen. I don't need applause. I don't need viral fame. I just needed one moment where the power flipped, where the manipulator who preached perfection finally had to live by her own rules. And in that moment, Willow Creek Estates stopped being her kingdom and became everyone else's home again. I take another sip, feeling the cool night air on my face. 5 years of silent endurance. 3 months of strategy. 1 perfect confrontation. And the woman who once demanded $15,000 or else is now the one paying the price. The useless ATM became the only resident who walked away richer in every way that matters. I smile into the darkness. Not cold this time, just quietly triumphant. Somewhere across town in a 2-bedroom rental, Karen is probably staring at the same moon wondering how her perfect community turned on her. I hope she's taking notes. Because the next time someone tries to turn a neighborhood into their personal piggy bank, they'll remember what happens when a quiet one finally speaks up. And me? I'm just Avery Thompson, homeowner, free woman. And the reason the new HOA bylaws start with a single line I insisted on, no resident shall ever be treated like an ATM again. The end.